Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
That's
You can sit over here if you want.
that kind of like, this is it, not probably. I think you that is not it. Please sit in the.
All right. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the August meeting of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors Audit Committee. Thank you for joining us today. I am Joe Marine, the Vice President of Operations with the LCTCS. Dr. Sullivan is currently engaged in official business out of the country representing the system and therefore cannot be with us in person for this meeting. I will be serving as his representative for today's meeting. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that the Audit Committee is being live streamed. Mr. Chair, turn it over to you.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 14th LCTC Board of Supervisors Audit Committee meeting called to order. The first thing I need to do is appoint Supervisor Billy Mount and Board Chair Mr. Tim Hardy to serve as a voting member for today's committee meeting. All other members present are able to participate but not vote. Thank you. Okay, now we're gonna have the pleasure of flag. Pat, would you lead us? Whenever you're ready.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Eric, if you would give us a roll call for a quorum, please.
Yes, sir. I would be happy to. Supervisor Salat
Present.
is present. Supervisor Burke is absent. Chair Hardy
Present.
is present. And Supervisor Mount
Present.
is present. We do have a quorum, Supervisor Salat.
Thank you very much. I'd like to add that we have two new board members with us today in the room. However, I'll hold their introduction till the board meeting and they'll be formally introduced by Chairman Hardy. Welcome to the meeting. Is there any public comments? And do we have, let it be known that have there been any requests for public comments relating to one of the numerous agenda items on today's meeting? This is a reminder that public comments must be related to specific item numbers.
No, sir. We have not received any public comments.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to for Chairman Hardy and Supervisor Mount to acknowledge that you received the minutes from April 10th meeting, and are there any corrections or additions to be made? Hearing none, do I accept an approval for?
Yes.
Okay, first Supervisor Mount, second Chair Hardy. Thank you.
All right. Okay, now we move into the shorter show. Just letting it share with us to review the internal audit year-ending report for fiscal year 2023-24, if you would, please.
Thank you, Supervisor. I appreciate everybody being here. See a lot of new faces. We got well attended here today, so this is nice. First thing I want to go over is our year-end report for the 23-24 fiscal year. All these projects have been discussed in front of this committee already. So this is just going to be a brief summarization, but since there are some new people here, I'll go into detail. And I'll also touch on a few of the projects that have not been discussed in front of this committee that have been issued since we last met. For the fiscal year, we completed 5 projects that produced 8 reports. We also were the ethics liaison for the system. So that involves training, also involves reporting the ethics completers to the ethics board, but most importantly, answering ethics questions from our system office and system employees, which we get plenty and we are happy to do. The first project I want to talk about is the federal student aid. And one thing I want to remind the committee is last year when I came before you with this plan, I said some of these projects are going to continue on. We're not just going to do it 1 year and move on to a different set of projects. And with federal student aid, that's one of them. You'll see it on the plan I'm going to submit for approval today. But this is just an overall review of their federal student financial aid program. Without student financial aid, our colleges wouldn't exist. So it's important to be in compliance. We get a lot of questions from our colleges about this issue. So it's good to give them that support. And this project ties into something that we checked into was consumer information. So because our colleges participate in the federal student financial aid program, they're required to make certain disclosures public to the students, the public, their families. We found a weakness there in our system, and we were able to, from that student financial aid project, find these consumer information issues, and across the system, we have it fixed. Charles led that charge, and it was an excellent project. I still get feedback from this day saying, hey, we really appreciated that. We didn't even know this had to be disclosed, but it was something we were able to react to and get corrected in a short amount of time. That gave me a good feeling that everybody doesn't love to see the auditor walk through the door, but when you get people telling you, hey, you did a good job, thank you, that's a welcome change.
Change your mode.
What's that?
You better change your way.
Yeah, I don't want to be a paper tiger. Next project is restricted fees. This is another one we get a lot of questions on from our colleges, and it's another project that you'll see in the fiscal year plan for 25. These are fees that are allowed by legislation, your technology fees, your building use fees. They're allowed to be collected, but they have strict rules on them. It's just not money you can spend as you please. So again, get a lot of questions on them. We went to Bossier Parish Community College. I think we found some issues, but remedied issues, easy to fix. The college and internal audit came to an agreement, got them fixed. I believe in September, we're going to SLCC. So they're next in line. I think tremendous benefit because, like I said, there's a lot of red tape with these fees, more so than others. So I think it's important to make sure everybody's on the same page when it comes to an understanding of them. Next was our Americans with Disabilities Act. I use this term a lot, probably too much, but this project identified blind spots in our compliance. It wasn't, I'm not an ADA expert. What I can do is I can read the law, get the best practices, go to the colleges and find out where we're deficient. We took that information. I passed it on to Amber Blair, who's our ADA coordinator at the system level, and the colleges throughout this past year have been improving those systems we found that were deficient. Again, that's another one. I still get people reaching out to me saying, hey, thanks. What's the next one going to be that you're going to do? They're already anticipating me doing another compliance project issue, and they're ready to get it fixed. I mentioned consumer information tied in with financial aid. Last one, and these just went out. This would have been on the board report summary that I submitted to you on Monday. These are our staffing projects. This wasn't a judgment of whether the college would do anything right, wrong, or indifferent. This was just a snapshot of this is what we're spending on the non-faculty side of the house. Again, whether one college is doing it right or wrong, that's not what it was. It was strictly informational. Take from it what you will. I think it gives the colleges an idea. Maybe, some of our colleges are more comparative based on geography or enrollment, and they can kind of see what others in the system are doing and maybe collaborate and say, hey, how are you getting by with this number of this many people? Or maybe I should up my number here. I'm having issues, they're not. That was the purpose of the project. And last, and certainly not least, for a supervisor, this gets them, but the purchase and travel car review, we're required to do that by the Division of Administration. I don't see it as a high-risk issue because there are certain controls in place on the card system that would prevent a massive type of fraud. I hate to use that word, which we've never seen on our cards. But the Division of Administration requires us to do these because if we do not, the colleges get written up that internal audit is not reviewing the card system. And I'm not gonna be, we got it one time, I'm not gonna ever be responsible for a college having to respond to an audit finding. So we do them, we try to do them once a quarter. The issues we're seeing, and maybe we can go into this further, Supervisor Salath and I had talked about this before the meeting. I'm not saying, like I said, there's no fraud, they're following the rules. Sometimes it's just a lack of documentation getting into the card system. So they'll have it on file somewhere at the college. They're in compliance with rules and regulations. They're just not supporting what I'll call an overage. For the example I give is, you know, it might be, you might have $120 allowance to stay in Baton Rouge at a hotel a night. That's your max. Well, state travel regs allow an overage if it's for a conference. Let's say the conference is being held there and the rate is 150. That's allowable, that's fine. But you have to document that overage. You have to upload into the card system, hey, I know it's 120, but we charge 150 a night. And here's the proof why. What I'm saying is the colleges have that proof somewhere in another system, it's just not getting uploaded. And I write that up because when the Office of State Travel goes out and audits, that's the first thing they look for, unsupported charges. So like I said, I'm seeing the issue occur more often than I would like. So what I've devised, and the supervisor and I have talked about this, is I'm going to write a memo to our CFOs reiterating that, hey, this is an issue. It's a real simple fix. It should be caught. But for whatever reason, it's fallen by the wayside. I think people take for granted that they know that this travel instance is allowable. They know it's at a conference rate, but getting that support into the system is the step that's being missed. So I think a simple procedure change for our card holders would remedy that. It's a brief summarization of the work we did in 23-24. Does anybody have any questions related to those projects?
Yeah.
Thank you.
A simple memo would probably suffice.
That's the plan.
We recommend that. Okay, thank you very much for the report. And that's a lot of work in just a few months. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna call it just we're into.
No, sorry, it's still me. I got.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah, it's 24,
yeah, now I gotta do 24, 25.
Okay. I
So
It's all good.
when we put together these plans, what we do is we create a risk assessment. We try to identify areas that are the riskiest areas, for lack of a better term. But I do something a little against the grain. I try to focus on things that we can actually do as internal audit and present it to you. I could write a risk universe of 100 different things, but with our, expertise, our staffing levels, I don't think it does us any favors to just wave a red flag and, publish a document saying, hey, this is all the areas we have problems. These are the areas that what I'm going to present you is where I think we can help. And but even within those areas, we do rate them. We base it on the type of risk, probability of risk, the likelihood, staff turnover, whether the reliance on IT, whether we've looked at it in the past. So all these, we have a risk matrix. All these factors are weighted, and each one gets a score, and it runs it through I have an Excel spreadsheet, and it spits it out, and it tells me, okay, this is your risk ranked. So the top one was financial aid controls. As I mentioned, we looked at this in 23-24. I want to continue doing that in 24-25. We're going to do financial aid control reviews at probably a college in the fall and in the spring. But what I'm going to do is lead a policy and procedure review. The feedback I got from our system office personnel is oftentimes they'll get a question from the college about a specific financial aid issue, and they'll say, well, what is your policy? And I'll say, well, we don't have a policy on that particular issue. And it's kind of, well, let's So I think what the effort is, I'm gonna approach it kind of like I did with ADA. Let's identify the areas at our colleges where a policy may be deficient, not exist, or need improvement or updating. And identify those areas, and then I can pass that along to Amy Cable at our system level, and she can push them the resources, which she already has, give them the resources that they need to get those policies proficient. So the financial aid review, this will be two-pronged. We'll have our financial aid review at the college level, but we'll also do a system level policy procedure review. Next is segregation of duties. This is internal controls, bread and butter 101. But I think it's important, especially for our system, and segregation of duties is like, you don't want somebody to be able to create a vendor and cut a check to that vendor. For financial aid, you don't want somebody to be able to approve aid and disperse aid, at least without some type of checks and balances. Well, with our colleges, a lot of them are, they're running at bare bones staffing level. They're focusing their dollars on training and educating students, and their business processes might not have enough staff to have proper segregation of duties. What you need to do in those cases is have mitigating controls. And I think this review will be good because we can go in and review at a college by college basis. This won't be system wide, but eventually we'll get there. But college level mitigating controls over segregation of duty issues. This is when I get a lot of questions from the colleges where they identify the issue. They say, hey, I clearly see I have a segregation of duty problem here. This is this is what we've done to try to, mitigate the risk here. So doing that, I think getting out there one-on-one with the CFO there, and because they know their issues, they can help us. And again, it's not just for the CFO, you have segregation of duties in HR, you don't want somebody to have complete control over HR system. That's how you get ghosts on the payroll. And as I mentioned with financial aid, you don't want somebody to have complete control over that because again, you can approve aid, disperse aid, amend aid. So that's going to be one of the projects we're doing. Like I said, that'll be on a college by college basis because it covers so many things. Bringing forward from the 23.
Mr. Chairman. So are you gonna do that? You're gonna do that at a couple of schools?
Correct.
Not all of them.
Well,
Never do all of them.
Yeah, I'd like to get to all of what I'll do is I'll reach out to the colleges that I've heard from who've had identified their issues and maybe start there.
Yep.
What I found is, this is the internal audit department, the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
When we embark on these system.
Now we got all the all together, by the way.
Yeah.
Everybody in the room.
When we embark on these system-wide reviews, you're dealing with 12 colleges, 12 points of contact. If I said, hey, we're gonna do segregation of duties at every college, it would take us years.
Well, so I appreciate that. I guess you're getting to where I was going at. I would think the focus would be either where somebody's identified or has asked you a question, or where someone has either a new or inexperienced financial person is probably a good place to focus on that.
Absolutely.
Because I'm gonna just say this in this audience, and I'm gonna say it out loud, is most of the folks that end up being leaders out of school, they typically do not come up and through administration finance, right, everybody? They usually come up on the academic side of the house.
Right.
It's a fact. It's a fact at every school in the country, by the way. So the financial ops side of it is probably where you have the least experience and probably need the most help. And then the other part of it is that's where you get in a bunch of trouble very quickly.
Absolutely.
Right? Somebody wants to be a bad actor can get away with a lot of stuff very quickly if you don't have internal controls.
Right.
So do we, related to that, we provide support staff. I know at Fletcher we do, and I think at other schools where the financial staff often provides support for the foundation.
Right.
Right, that is something we allow to happen for several years now, which is a good thing. But that's also a place where it's very bare bones staffing, and so the segregation of duties gets to be a problem, and that's also a place where there's a potential for issues.
Correct.
So I don't know if that's part of your scope. If you can fit that into your scope, I
Yeah,
would suggest that if that doesn't stretch you too thin.
no,
What I'm saying, in a relationship between our foundations and our financial staff is close on purpose. And so that's a good thing, but it's also a problem when you get the segregation of duties, and now you're dealing with private funds that be given to school. And if we have a misstep there, then that money goes away.
Jeff, just on one point also, Jeff's right that there's 12 points of contacts for 12 colleges, but what Jeff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but as Jeff starts to delve into these colleges one-on-one, there are commonalities, and since we all use Banner as one accounting system, right? So the framework is somewhat there. The processes that they use might vary slightly. But in this sense, as Jeff goes through each of these colleges with these touch points, he's building on a knowledge base that he can bring over to the next review and subsequent reviews, because there's this framework that we have and have had in place 10 plus years.
right. And your point about foundations, we're technically not, for lack of a better term, allowed to, we can with permission, but there's kind of this separation of what we're allowed to do with the foundations, and it depends on the agreement between the college and the foundation, what internal audit can do, so.
And the foundations have an audit every year, and part of the
Right.
audit is that discussion, because I've raised the point 53 times in audit meetings on those foundations that I said, so I mean, it's a good thing, but we really need to be vigilant about it.
Right,
It quite frankly it's we've had experience with that over the years.
yes,
Like, not anybody in this room, thank God, but I mean, we've had experience with it over years. It's been a relationship that needed to be monitored.
right. No, I agree.
That's a good term, monitored.
And back to what you're saying with new employees, that is certainly a risk factor, and it's something I'm gonna consider. I find new employees have, you kind of get in the weeds, and it's more about, let me get this done rather than get it done right. So yeah, that is certainly a thing. Again, I'm gonna reach out to those colleges that have already reached out to me and start there. And maybe that won't be the direction we go in, because I do not have a college selected yet for our first review of this, but it's certainly a risk factor for sure.
Yep.
We had a misappropriation, and that was the direct response I got from the college. It was like, oh, it was a brand new employee.
Yep.
So yeah, and exactly there, they were in the weeds, and they ignored the red flag and pushed through. Next on our list, again, this is bringing over from 23-24, because we only got to one college, is the restricted fees. Again, a lot of questions. We get a lot of requests for research into this. These fees have a lot of rules and regulations on them, and I think it'd be a tremendous benefit to a college. We're going to SLCC in September to do a full review of their restricted fees. This next one is a new one, and this I hope this isn't my Napoleon in Siberia moment, but we're going to delve into disaster recovery. I'm not going to present myself as a disaster recovery expert. I know this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but I think we can create an audit program that would allow us to identify areas where a college's disaster recovery plan is not aligned with their goals, where we can provide information on getting contract rates. That's one of the big things I received. I did a little legwork with the chancellors. I reached out to them for a discussion on this, and that was one of the things several of them brought up. They want to, they noticed their K through 12 partners, they have these agreed upon contract rates for these disaster recovery situations. They want to bring that model to their colleges, because you have a disaster and everybody's scrambling, we got to buy this, we got to buy this. Well, it'd be a lot easier to say, hey, we have this agreement that you'll, within a certain amount of time, you'll deliver this for this amount. So that's one of the things we're going to look at. Building hardening. How much wind can my building take? What's the floodplain? Do we have that information? Again, that's back to the blind spot. That could be something we're not sure on. Another thing I think we can identify, and this kind of goes back to the segregation of duties in a way, is cross-training. You know, somebody might not be able to physically get to the campus. Do we have somebody who is cross-trained, can handle that function? You know, this is gonna be a skeleton crew type, but there are certain functions that have to exist and move on in these disaster recovery type situations. So we're gonna attempt it. We're gonna do one college in the fall, one college in the spring. Chancellor Fletcher reached out and she's already kind of leading the charge on this. So we're gonna kind of partner up. And that's gonna be the first one we go to. And I think we can help each other out and then take that and go forward to other colleges, because I had several chancellors reach out to me and say, hey, we want to be next, you know. And that's a good feeling, because I feel like it's something we can step in and help. Again, identifying those blind spots.
I have some experience in that arena, so when you get busy on that, we'll talk.
Great, I look forward to it. The last one on our plan, besides, obviously, we have to do the card reviews, the travel and purchase card. That's required by the division administration. But the last one that we came up with is, I call it elected officials. When I first came to LCTCS in 2008, we had almost 30 employees in our system that also held an elected official position. Now, you might be saying, there's something wrong with that, but as a public employee, you're not allowed to hold public office. However, there is an exception in the law that if you hold a position in a professional education capacity, you are allowed to hold a public elected official position. So that allows a unique opportunity for our employees. Now, like I said, when I came in 2008, we had almost 30. We last did this review in 2019, we were down to 14. But again, that was in 2019. We don't do it annual anymore because I wasn't seeing the risk there. But it'll be going on 5-6 years since we last did it. I'm sure we have some folks who've never been through it. There's an old saying that the greatest control is the perception that somebody is watching. You know, they do the studies where a fake camera works just as good as a real camera over a bank teller. Well, this is kind of the same thing. If one of these employees knows this is something we look into, just the fact that they know internal audit, this is on their radar, they might not, that idea that, oh, I'm going to leave at 2:30 every day to go handle my elected official duties, that might be just the thing we need to prevent that from happening. What we do is, in this project, we interview the employee, we interview the supervisor. We also looked into resources that can identify the timing of things. A good resource is all these elected officials now, the minutes of their meetings are online. So you can go word search and see when and where they were handling their public duties. Funny story, like I said, when I first started LCTCS in 2008, we'd have to drive to Menden and go to the parish office and have the administrator print out the minutes, and it was sitting in your office, just reading through them. Now, technology has really reduced the amount of time this project takes. But I think it's like I said, the risk, it's not an annual thing we need to be doing. But once every 4 or 5 years, I think it's warranted and it's worthy of our time. And what I do with these reports, I'll also identify these folks for you and give you their position, title, what elected official position they held. These won't, normally our reports, you only see the issue. I don't issue a report and say, hey, we looked into this and this was good, and you only see this was the issue. Well, for these, I'll tell you, like I said, their position, what they do, and I think gives you an idea of, the folks who are working these positions. See a lot of, mostly school board members. I don't think we have any, it'll be interesting, but I don't think we have any like legislators anymore. We used to. That's it for the plan for 24-25. I try to estimate to leave about 20. There's going to be projects that pop up. Unfortunately, you have misappropriation, issues or fraud issues that pop up that we have to look into. So I do have to leave a little bit of time in our schedule for that. Even some of these projects can lead to something else that we have to look into. Also, in January, the Institute of Internal Auditors has a new set of standards that are coming out. So we'll have to devote a little bit of our time to make sure we're up to snuff on making sure our standards are up to date. Because we do, we comply with their standards. We are up to date on our quality assessment review. We want to make sure we can say, hey, the IA, we follow their framework and we are in compliance. So that's going to be about 20% of our year in addition to these. Are there any questions related to any of these projects or maybe something you think we should also be looking into? I'm here for discussion, so.
Any questions?
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
I think you got enough.
Yeah, it's never a dull moment.
All this, it needs more work. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll call Mr. Warren for the,
This is, yeah. Okay, I will read the recommendation.
oh, that's right, we got a recommendation. Accept
Yeah.
that.
Fine.
Yeah, I got it. Almost. Almost.
Here it is. Okay.
We'll get one more sheet.
Staff recommends that the audit committee of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors approve the proposed annual audit plan for the fiscal year 24-25 as presented by the internal audit director to be effective upon approval through June 30, 2025.
Okay. You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Mount, seconded by Chair Hardy. Thank you.
No discussion. Thank you very much. Okay, now, Mr. Fellow, Mr. Joe.
Yes, we have, just as a little bit of a backstory for both old and new board members. Throughout the year, the legislative auditor does audit, not necessarily all our colleges, but they do have a rotation by which they try to touch all of them over a 3-year cycle, Shannon? 2-year cycle. And subsequently, what they do is they will issue reports and also make you aware that you will, throughout the year, as these reports become available, you will get an email from the legislative audit file room as board members showing your fiduciary duty over these colleges, giving you basically a copy of the report and the summary of the report, if there's any reportable findings or not. As a part of the follow-up to that process, internal audit during their meetings, they will then also recap those reports that were issued during the months and times that occurred before this current meeting and the prior meeting. In this case, we have two reports that were issued, one recently as of early June for North Shore Technical Community College and one for River Parishes Community College earlier on, I believe sometime in May or thereabouts. Good news is that River Parishes, I'd like to congratulate them. Their audit report had no reportable findings. And this is coming off of a prior year audit that had findings, had 3, as the chancellor is telling me. Some of them were historical in nature, where there was staff turnover, and now that they have a new staff, and I turn to Ms. Kim Showers here, the CFO at River Parishes. They've done a lot of cleanup since her arrival at the college, and so I'm pleased and happy to present that audit report again reflected no audit findings for River Parishes Community College, and look for a lot of great work to come from them going forward. Now, Chancellor, I don't know if there's anything else we would like to mention, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Kim and her team for coming in and getting in there and cleaning it up. And I appreciate the board officer's support as well.
All right, thank you. The next one, North Shore Technical Community College, they just got off their audit. They had one reportable finding related to student accounts. And what occurred here is, in essence, the auditors, as a part of their practice, will pull student accounts as a sample. I would like to point out that these samples aren't necessarily representative of the entire population. In this case, there were 25 files that were pulled. Of the 25 files, 2 of them indicated that they were workforce non-credit students whose accounts showed that they had balances still on their accounts, even though they dropped the classes earlier in the semester. And there's a process by which communications occur between faculty instructor and the finance office to reconcile and report that those students had dropped. There were situations that occurred that did not happen in this case. since it's been brought to the attention of the college, they have taken corrective actions. I would like to highlight, this is a workforce non-credit student, which students, which are kind of a new arena to not LCTCS by any means. We've been doing this for 25 years, but it is new in progress in the sense of them being incorporated into the Banner student system. We're starting to kind of bring them in and have brought them in and are still working through those processes to make sure that this workflow occurs seamlessly. I will state that non-credit students are, again, not your traditional workforce students. They come in at different times, different schedules. Sometimes they are scheduled in blocks from companies. So it's not your traditional 18-year-old student coming in, registering for classes and just kind of showing up. They work very fluid schedules, and that may have contributed to this. But Chancellor Carlson, I don't know if there's anything else you maybe would
No,
mention.
there really wasn't much we could say other than the instructor did what they were supposed to do. They identified the 2 students that did not attend the class, notified our workforce coordinator by email, and she just overlooked it and didn't drop the students in a timely fashion.
Okay. And again, y'all worked out processes and reported those processes to the board, keeping in mind that the auditors, whenever they do leave and come back to subsequent time, first thing they will do is they will go back to see that you've rectified those audit findings. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the end of my report.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Is there any other business or do we have any public comments?
No, sir, not.
Is there any other business to come before the board? Well, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to.
So moved.
First by Supervisor Now, second by Chair Hardy.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Good job.
Says she ready. Finish. Move on.
Next slide.
Yeah, it's a whole.
He basically answered that he's following.
Nice to meet you.
Yes,
I do. It's not close to that. Let's do it. It's kind of this.